We move on. And if you are aware, I has started my top 10 favorite John Cena matches last week. It was John Cena versus Randy Orton at Bragging Rights 2009. It was an Anything Goes Iron Man match for the WWE Championship. This week is number 9 in the John Cena matches, my favorite John Cena matches. And this is a match that, for all intents and purposes, was pretty damn good. It was kind of similar to the Randy Orton and John Cena match, which was just a brawl. I mean, literally, it was a brawl, because that was the name of the match. This happened on Smackdown. It was Smackdown, September 11, 2003. It was a match between John Cena versus Eddie Guerrero in the parking lot brawl. Or they called it a Latino Heat parking lot brawl. But parking lot brawl nonetheless. So I had to go back and quickly rewatch some of the segments and kind of keep you guys up with how this all played out, how this match happened. So earlier in the year, I think it was either late 2002 or early 2003, John Cena turned heel. Because if you remember, John Cena was known as the prototype pro wrestler. He had the colorful tights, the boots, and he turned heel. I believe he turned heel on Billy Kidman. And that's when the whole Dr. Thugonomics started. And yes, John Cena was a heel. It was great for the short time it lasted. But earlier that year, John Cena turned heel as the Dr. Thugonomics. Meanwhile, Los Guerreros were one of the hottest tag teams on the Smackdown brand. Unfortunately, Chavo Guerrero suffered an injury, so he was out for a few months. So Eddie Guerrero was on his own for a while. And during that time, Stephanie McMahon announced that she announced a tournament where the winner of the tournament would become the very first inaugural WWE United States Champion. Yes, the United States Championship had been around a lot longer, like in WCW days. But this is the first one, at least in WWE. The very first WWE United States Championship. And they did a tournament, which the finals were finalized and concluded at one of my favorite pay-per-views, that being Vengeance in 2003. Between Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, which was one of their best matches they've ever had. If not, me personally, probably their best match in WWE they had. Besides Rhino costing Benoit the match itself was long. It was given enough time, and Eddie Guerrero won. He became the inaugural United States Champion. And because of that, Eddie slowly went from being a heel to slowly becoming a babyface. The crowd was starting to get behind him. And one day on SmackDown, he was celebrating with his family. He was in El Paso, Texas, I should say, his own town, celebrating with his family, friends, having a good time. And we see John Cena talking shit about Eddie, say, hey, I want your U.S. title. And later that night on SmackDown, Guerrero accepted. Cena and Guerrero were having a match. But before that happened, they ended up having a match. And before that happened, I believe Cena was being accused of stealing Eddie Guerrero's ride. Eddie Guerrero realized that his wheel, one of his vehicles, his wheel was gone. And they were, of course, blaming Cena because he had that big match with Eddie Guerrero the following week. Of course, Cena saying, I didn't do it. And of course, he ends up walking out with his wheel. And Guerrero caught up to Cena before the match started beating Cena away. That sounded kind of dirty. I apologize. He basically beat the crap out of him. And they had a match. It was going back and forth. And I believe the match ended in disqualification when John Cena hit Eddie Guerrero with the steel chain. Guerrero was busted open, and then hit the FU on a Guerrero onto the tire. Lay them out. And of course, Guerrero came back the following week looking for vengeance on Cena. And Cena ended up escaping and stealing Guerrero's ride, his low rider, the following week. And Guerrero was pissed that he wanted a match against Cena to end this non-title match. It would have been a parking lot brawl, where basically this match happened in this unique location, almost like a garage, and all these old cars were surrounded in a circle. And you see some of the wrestlers, SmackDown wrestlers, like the APA and all of them, surrounding, acting like fans. Like this was like something out of a fighting game video game. You know, you have those arenas like Street Fighter. We have the cars surrounded, and you see people in the background like chanting, cheering, booing. You see the two guys fighting. This is basically what it was. So John Cena was in this circle of cars, this was an anything goes, falls count anywhere. And we see Cena talking smack to a Guerrero, doing his usual rapper Cena stuff, which was funny as all hell. And we see a Guerrero pull up in his lowrider. I believe it was a car. I think it might have been some sort of like a truck. A decked out truck, and Guerrero and Cena just started beating the piss out of each other. They just started brawling. One minute, John Cena went to the back of the trunk of a car and pulled out a bunch of gardening utensils like shovels and hose and stuff like that. And not those type of hose, but like gardening hose. He even tried to run over a Guerrero with a lawnmower. You could not get away with this stuff back in today's PC era. You couldn't. That was just priceless. But this match, all these two did was basically start to beat the crap out of each other. It was just a brawl. That's all this was. There wasn't really any unique spots or anything. It was just throwing each other to cars, punching. Guerrero, I remember, strangled John Cena with the seatbelt. That was great. But towards the end of the match, we see Cena looks like he's going to finish up a Guerrero, when Cena gets struck by something. Someone has struck John Cena with something in the head. And Cena falls on top of one of the hoods of the car. And the person that struck Cena was... Sorry about that. My microphone knocked down. But one of the guys that knocked out Cena was the returning Chavo Guerrero. He returned from injury, and Guerrero was happy to see him. He was on top of one truck on the other side. He jumps off that car and hits a frog splash onto John Cena, onto the hooded car. Guerrero pins Cena for the win. And Guerrero and Chavo are hugging. They're celebrating. And they move on. They drive out of there as Cena's writhing in pain. This was a very slow mid-card feud. It never expanded. It only lasted for a few weeks. But it culminated in this fun, memorable SmackDown match that is, in my opinion, still one of Guerrero's best matches. It was John Cena's. It's one of my personal favorites. It's one of these matches it's not a technical masterpiece, but it's just a fun brawl. And this match only went for maybe 6-7 minutes. It's a very short match. But they did a lot of creative, unique things in this type of environment that were fun. It was just fun. And like I said, there were many parking lot brawls that were great too. Like the last recently great one was in Dynamite. It was the Best Friends versus Santana Ortiz. That was a fantastic match, but this was still fun. And John Cena and JBL had a parking lot brawl at the Great American Bash in 2008. That was still a great match too, but this one was still the best. If you weren't talking about length and best in-ring type of one, go watch the AEW Dynamite one. If you want to watch the most fun, go watch this one. The Cena and Guerrero match was definitely fun. It was just a fun little brawl. There was nothing really else to say about it. It was just a great little mid-card feud. And then Guerrero, little months later, would go on to be WWE champion. That John Cena later would go on to be one of the biggest stars of the company. And this was, I guess it was almost like a breakout performance for John Cena. In fact, shortly after, John Cena was slowly turned babyface. The fans would turn Cena babyface because he was just over with this Dr. Thugonomics character. But this match was just a lot of fun. It was short but sweet.